morning and welcome to another OSR Tabletop with DM Bloodworth. And this is a remote, very impromptu stream. I was uploading a video just before we left for this family wedding, and I had turned off the computer because we were leaving, and didn't realize that for whatever reason the video never ended up getting uploaded, and so that won't happen until Saturday evening. So I will finish up that upload Saturday evening. But I did want to jump on this topic while it was still fresh in my mind, and but there'll be much more detail in the in the video that we'll post sometime very early Sunday morning. So we'll get home sometime later in the evening on Saturday, and the rest of that video we'll post at that point. So what am I going to be talking about today? So I am remote. I am down in Palm Beach, Florida, for my wife's family, her side of the family wedding, and so we'll be here for 2 days, and then we'll be returning tomorrow evening. So let's give you some context, and it'll go much more into detail in the video that we'll post Sunday morning. I saw the movie. I saw Honor Among Thieves back on Sunday of last week, the 19th, as part of the Amazon Prime, and my niece had bought the tickets and asked me to go with her. She is a new dungeon master for 5e. She is the person that I gave all of my 5e materials to, and so when she asked if I would go to see the movie with her, I certainly went along with her and my brother. So saw the movie, and I was not surprised that it was an entertaining movie, but I was surprised at I was surprised that it was as good as it was, and so that was a pleasant surprise. I will fully admit, and I came out right from then, and still state to this now that in my mind the movie was a 7.8 out of 10. All right, and I'll even put that there. So for the record, the D&D final rating from me is a 7.8. All right, so what I started to really determine over the next couple of days following that, and heavily influenced by my gaming session Tuesday night, was that I started to realize that there was certainly a disconnect between what the movie was showing and what the viewers of the movie, if they did choose to pick up the game for the first time, what the disconnect would be there. All right, and that's what allowed me to start formulating why it was a 7.8, and what it actually lost in those the 2.2 points. So what cost the movie the 2.2 points in my rating, and here it basically is. So as surprising as the movie was, that it was an enjoyable movie, and I never thought that it would not be entertaining. I always thought, this movie is going to be entertaining. I expected that it would be, fairly shallow, not a very strong story, and that was pretty much held true. All right, it was a very cliche story, overdone and overall bland. I mean, basically, you have, the adventure party. They're going after this MacGuffin. And, basically, it's we have to undo the mistake that some of our, party members had made, and make amends, right? So It's a story that you've seen time and time again. All right. The some of the positives, and I spoke about the positives in the previous video. All right. The acting was fairly good. I think some of the characters, they had some backstory to them. Others did not have a fully fleshed out backstory, and that was one of the detriments that I saw in this movie, was that the villains really did not have the same kind of a fleshing out, especially Safina. You didn't quite never quite knew what Safina, the Thay sorceress, was all about. What was her driving motivation? And so that was a major reason why I could certainly not give it a 9 out of 10. So the story and the lack of fleshing out of the main villains of the story were the full point right there. The other thing which I mentioned here, and I go much more into detail on the on the video that we'll post Sunday morning, is that there wasn't any real sense of risk throughout this entire movie, and that's something that I did anticipate. I did expect, well before this movie had even shown its previews, that it was not going to be a very challenging movie or a very challenging adventure for the characters in the movie. I'll say, hey, hello, Gainsayer Stalker. All right, that's the first time I've noticed your name here, so welcome to the channel, and thanks for popping in a very impromptu video. If you have, or live stream, I should say, if you have seen the movie and you want to comment on any parts of my commentary here, please feel free to go do so. Hey Cal, how's it going? Yeah, sorry about the no advanced warning about this live stream. I'm remote, I'm not at home, and just have this little window of time that I could get out there and just do a stream really quick, talk a little bit about my my thoughts about the game, and my thoughts about the movie, and the disconnect that I believe does exist, or certainly will exist once more people have seen the movie, Honor Among Thieves, and then if they do in fact go to a gaming table, how that disconnect is going to play out. So I will get back to so I'm calling that the hat effect, right? The Honor Among Thieves effect. And what is that basically? It's very similar to the Mercer effect, right? So it's all about the expectations of what the viewer is going to then take to the gaming table, and the fact that this movie is going to, if it does in fact bring a number of new players to Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't think it's going to be a huge number at all. I really don't. I don't think that the movie itself was a big enough booster of the game. All right. And the reason why I say that is because there wasn't enough connection to the game, and certainly didn't do it as well as it could have done if they were looking to make this movie solely for the purpose of attracting new players to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or 6th edition or whatever edition they're looking to do. I anticipate the lack of risk for the movie characters. I won't see this movie until it's free. Yeah, and I was in the same boat, and I technically did not pay for this movie, so I did see it for free, and I wasn't going to pass that up. I also wasn't going to disappoint my niece, who I gave my fifth edition, collection to, and so I was never expecting that this movie would have any real challenge in the adventure itself. Like you kind of know that whatever they're going to do, they're going to be successful. Um, it just got to a level that I was kind of surprised at, um, and in connection with my game session on Tuesday night, it really drove the difference home. I will be right back. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Room service had to drop off some towels. So, yeah. So let me pick up. In my game session Tuesday night, and like I said, this video will come out. That I already made will come out Sunday morning and go into much more detail. But long story short, in my game session Tuesday night, 8-player characters. During the course of that session, they had 3 battles. They had produced about 6 critical hits, and they had 3 fumbles. All right, in which they either got injured or nearly broke their, one of the paladin in the group nearly broke his attuned sword. So that would have been a major, defect on him. The other 2 characters who had critical fumbles, one blinded himself with his action, and the other had over lunged with his sword attack and broke his jaw, against the floor, receiving damage from that, plus the broken jaw. And since he's a fighter magic user, he basically just eliminated his spell components that required a verbal or semantic, no, verbal, I'm sorry, verbal component. He already lost the semantics when he lost 4 fingers in the previous adventure from a critical hit against him as well. And that's what started making the difference in my mind between the movie and my game session. All right. The difference was that in the movie, and this is going to be a spoiler, in the movie, not a single injury during the entire course of the movie, with one exception that you never actually see, or at least I did not see it, where one of the characters, and I'm not going to reveal whom, one of the characters apparently gets stabbed, and that character dies and then is resurrected. All right. All throughout the entire movie, not a single scratch, even though they went through a number of combats. All right. All throughout the movie, they didn't even get a speck of dirt on them. Their hair wasn't put out of place in all of these combats. I mean, it was just such a an anesthetized, or just such a Clorox clean vision of what adventuring is and what combat is, and there was just no risk. Once you realize that, once you walk away from the movie and you start seeing, if you're an experienced dungeon master or you're an experienced player, and you go back to your table and you start thinking about the movie and your own experience at your gaming table, you're like, wow, that movie just didn't capture even in any way what actually happens at your table. So it is very similar, a Mercer effect, just that I think it's even worse so because if this movie was designed to bring players to the game that had never played before, they're going to go in there and they say, "Well, wait a second, I'm just expecting this adventure. I'm not expecting to get injured. I'm not expecting to need healing. I'm not expected to have these conditions that prevent me from doing things that my character was supposed to be able to do." Um, and this was a realization that was even stated by the actor from that played the paladin, where he mentioned, he was like, "Yeah, our group didn't even have a cleric," which further shows you the disconnect, because they had a paladin, they had a druid, and they had a bard, all of which can heal. And so for him to say that just shows that they weren't really even thinking about the translation from movie to game, while they were acting this out, while this movie story was written. And so that is that's the issue, is that it just wasn't a good translation. And so if it does attract players, all right, the new players to the new players of that game are going to come there with an expectation based on what they saw in the movie, and they're going to be immediately disappointed. So if it does attract any players to it, they're not going to be long-standing players. They're going to say, this is not what I was expecting, and they're going to leave. All right, let me get to some of these comments here. So magic use was very disconnected to how it is used in the game, how many speak with the dead spells were cast, and some of the spells were a very high level, reverse gravity and time stop, for example. Yeah, and I understand that the party is supposed to be like level, 14, 15, 16, at least that's what they stated. So it was a very high level party. And again, I compared that to my character group, in my campaign, and my character group, 8 players, are running characters that range from level 8 to 10 now. We've been playing for 84 sessions. During those 84 sessions, on 17 occasions, they had to make a system shock check or die. Throughout all of those instances, they have lost the use of limbs, lost fingers, blinded themselves, received scars that were, the result of going deep into negative hit point range. So -6, -4, I think -4 on at least 2 occasions. Most of those death saves, if you want to call those death saves, and that's, fail and you die, one shot, those were all primarily from receiving injuries from a single attack that was 50% or more of their hit point total. And so, I mean, hit point maximum. So all of these players are in my game, they're player characters, I should say. All these player characters in my game have countless scars and memories of near-death experiences. All right, even though they're levels 8 through 10, compared to this party of adventurers who are much higher level, and yet you don't see any depiction of injury, scars. You know, like I said, I don't recall them going through this entire adventure and even getting dirty. Um, so it's like it's like not even so much as a scratch or a bruise. So it really did take away from the movie experience for me. And again, it's the reason why, I could not see giving it even an 8 out of 10. I had to, take it down even further. Now, I did want to say it was, less than 70% because it was an entertaining movie. It just wasn't a very good D&D movie if you wanted to have it function as a draw from the movie to the game. That it doesn't make a very good connection at all. And I think that it will it will very quickly be seen as a almost like a bait and switch, or like I said, like the Mercer effect. Well, you're showing me one thing on screen, and then when I sit at my table, the experience is very, very much different and not to that same level. Um, and I think that, and I'm not even saying it's a qualitative difference. All right, it's just a major difference that because I think that and I will set aside any humbleness here, but I think that the experience taking place at my table is actually better than what was depicted in the movie. Much more meaningful, much more challenging, and and just what Dungeons and Dragons is supposed to look like, as opposed to what was presented in the movie. So I think that's a major detractor from the movie that I came away with, was the fact that, you know, I think the gaming experience is much better to relay the story of Dungeons and Dragons and what it's meant to be. Let's check on comments. So we just had that comment there. So again, that is the hat effect. All right, the hat effect, in my view, is that disconnect between what the movie is showing and what's going to happen at your table. And if the movie's intention was to bring more players to the gaming table, then I think it's really setting up those viewers that have never played Dungeons and Dragons before. I think it's setting them up for disappointment, because it's not that they're going to find a lesser experience at the gaming table. They're not going to find the same experience at the gaming table, and if they do get over the hump of realizing, oh wait, this is a little bit more. This experience is a lot more textured at the gaming table than what I watched on the movie. Then they may get over that hump and get past that, and then start to realize, hey, you know what? That movie wasn't as good as I thought it was when I first saw it, because now I can see the difference. Now I can see that the experience at the gaming table is far in excess, superior to what was depicted in the movie. All right, and that's my biggest takeaway from it. It's why I give the movie overall a 7.8. And I think some of that 7.8 is also coming from, I went into the movie with such a low expectation that it surprised me that it wasn't a total dumpster fire. So maybe I'm even being a little bit more generous than I might have been with that 7.8 rating. If I had gone into it expecting a much better movie, I might have taken that down to a 7.5 or maybe even a 7 out of 10. I think anywhere within that range. If you're saying it's below a 7, I would disagree. If you're saying it's above an 8, I would also disagree almost equally so. Um, and then there's those that are just completely, you know, biased to the point where this is a 5 out of 5. This is a 10 out of 10. This movie was phenomenal. All right. There's no way that any experienced dungeon master or even player of D&D can look at this movie, in my opinion, and walk away and say this was the greatest. It was the best D&D movie ever made. All right. But it's certainly not the greatest movie. It is certainly not, um, it's certainly not perfect or exceptional or, even, a certainly not like an Oscar worthy. I've actually heard one individual say, this is an Oscar worthy movie. I mean, that's just total shill for Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, and not really looking at it from the perspective of, you know, how does this movie impact someone seeing it, going to a gaming table, and then how is their experience going to be different between those two things? And I think once you look at it that way, you're going to realize that this movie isn't as good as some might say, but it is certainly not as bad as some might say or have said in the past either. So it's a slightly better than average movie, 75 to 79ish. Like I said, I could not see giving it an 8 out of 10. I think that there are too many detractors to give it that high of a rating, but I certainly don't see it going below average either, or below a 75 to any great degree. So, thanks a lot for popping in for really short stream. Like I said, I wasn't really expecting to do this. Because I really thought that the full video of this was going to go live while I'm sitting on the plane flying down here to Florida, and and it just dawned on me. I was like, crap! I turned off my computer before I left, and so it's not going to finish downloading until I turn that computer back on again, and probably have to restart the whole upload process of that. So. As always, thanks for joining in, and for those of you on such short notice that popped in, so thanks for your comments. So, like Cal and Naughty Professor and Gainsayer Stalker, like I said, I've never seen your name before. If I had missed you in the past, I apologize for that, but good to see you. Hopefully, you're a new person on the screen, and so it's always great to see some new names and faces, and I hope you continue coming on back. And I will be back to producing videos Sunday morning, and moving forward, be done with this little family wedding 2 days away from home break. So have a great one, everyone. Enjoy, stay safe, and keep on gaming out there. If you see the video, if you've seen the movie and you want to comment on here, feel free to comment on here. At this point, I think that so many people have Amazon Prime that if they didn't take the opportunity to see see the movie then, sure, there'll be some more that see it on March 30th and March 31st, but I've seen some projections already, coming from like comicbook.com and some other websites that have actually been really downplaying how well this movie is going to do. And they're tacking it in at below 30 million as an opening, which I don't know if that's going to include the Amazon um, early access or not, but it's not looking like some of the industry media, news or whatever you want to call them, websites and such, are really thinking that this movie is going to be, certainly not going to be a blockbuster. I think it's going to, and I've always said it, I always said that it would probably come in below expectations and certainly below the numbers that Hasbro really does need, because it is a good movie. It was fun. Um, Nothing new. If you've seen some of like the OGGM has been doing videos now on other sword and sorcery fantasy movies that are D&D adjacent, and pointing out that actually these movies are probably better than this. And I can say some of them, like I still say Hawk the Slayer is the best non D&D movie that's out there. And when people look at like sword and sorcery or um, what was there? There's like Deathbringer and Dragon Slayer and so on and so forth. I mean, there were so many older movies out there that I think do the game more justice, if that makes any sense. Like there's a better connection because there was actual risk, which I think is the biggest detractor to this movie. So, as always, thanks for dropping in. Sorry I rambled a little bit there at the end and went off on a new tangent, but keep on gaming out there. Look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. My regularly scheduled videos will start coming out on Sunday, and you all have a great rest of your day. Take care.